Orstead's a nice enough little hamlet, but a boring posting for a guard. If a dragon attacks, well, then it'd be a different story.
Tidings, weary traveler. These days it's not often I get approached, at least by other men. They call me Larkspur. That name should tell you anything you need to know, and everything you want to believe. Perhaps you may have heard vicious rumors regarding my appetite for women, and I assure you, they're all true. You may have heard I'm a nefarious rogue who robs and kills and beds your wife, but only if you're rich. And I assure you, I don't care whose wives I bed. You may have heard I'm taller than a giant and as ugly as a troll. And so, I submit to you my person as evidence, and you'll see that I'm chiseled like a sculpture, and that rumor is more mud than stone. Then consider yourself blessed. You can hear the story of Larkspur from the one who lived it. Would you believe me if I said I came here for the company? Such a statement would be made in jest, of course, but not entirely false. I do indeed come here for the company, but only to mock it. And thus, the dungeon is never bereft of prisoners, as it's the men in uniform, my former jailers, who have been granted a life sentence. I'm a bandit, a thief, which might strike you as odd, considering this dashing head of mine is still attached to its body. After all, in this land, only the rich get a trial, whether your capital is coin or politics. My pursuers couldn't execute me because I turned myself in. I turned myself in because the Jarl can't risk an execution. With the civil war going on, there's too much turmoil, and the Jarl knows his chair isn't exclusive to his bottom. To execute a bandit who sacks finely clothed men and spreads the coin among the people, well, that won't make that chair any more comfortable. Now that's a time I don't mind revisiting. They call me Poverty's Prince, which, like the king in rags, is both the title of disrespect and honor. Whether a person thought it one or the other could tell you all you needed to know about their station. I myself accepted it with great pride. What you say is true, and why I'm no true hero. I only wish I could have given more to the ones who needed it most. My mother. Truth is, I was a bandit before I was anything else. The bandit business was the family business, and I've been a no-good bandit since birth. My parents made it seem so romantic when I was a child. They would return and tell me tales of great beasts and come back with the skins as proof. Most of the time, they brought back books they stole from caravans. They wanted a different life for me, but they weren't naive. They also taught me the trade, how to knock an arrow, shoot a troll between the eyes, and harvest its fat. As you might expect, I was a natural. They taught me how to kill a man, too, where the weak points were in his body and mind, how a simple illusion spell can pierce harder than any blade. When I went out on my own, however, I soon learned that the life of a bandit was far from romantic. There was no sense to the carnage. It didn't matter if you were rich or poor, armed or defenseless. If you walked the road, you paid the toll. I agree, but you'll have a hard time convincing a bandit of his moral obligation. Gold is far more persuasive. It all changed when I read a book called The Beggar Prince, and I realized the beggars with eyes and ears on the streets were the key. I took what money I had and befriended them. I learned of the comings and goings of the city's wealthiest merchants and the mercs they hired. Soon, my whisperers included the townsfolk in the market district and the farmers who worked outside the castle walls. I knew what shipment was going out and when. I knew the men tasked to guard it. What time they woke up, their favorite drink, if they pissed in the river or liked to use the latrine. Gathering the muscle for the job was easy. Most bandits are too stupid to organize a guild, but they know the shiny things are worth a lot of coin. The whole thing made for good business, and after every successful raid, I made sure to fill the coffers of the lower district. That's how I became poverty's prince. I merely invested in the very beggars and workers that the wealthy try so hard to ignore. When the merchants found it too difficult to stop our raids, Alfred Battleborn used his considerable resources to threaten the people. He put the fear of the Daedra in the townsfolk, and the cost of information went up. Plus, the information we did get was unreliable. Alfred paid the beggars to misdirect us, or send us straight into ambushes. Say what you want about the Battleborns, but they're a clever group. What's there to say? The people of Whiterun think my time here was a sham, that my standing among the poor gave me refuge in this foul pit. I admit, I too thought as much, and went so far as to tell those who supported my cause not to fret. I thought I'd live as the Jarl of the dungeon with all the food I could eat and all the ale I could drink. It wasn't so. The guards aren't beholden to some idealistic sense of honor. They just want to fatten their coin purse. A guard is only concerned with following the orders of the man who pays him, and I'm not referring to the Jarl. That's putting it a bit mildly. They beat me, starved me, and they gave me a health potion so they could beat me some more. When I refused to drink, they brought in a healer to restore me so that I'd survive another round of torture. It was a foul trick. The burns, the scars, none of it remained to show the horror of what I endured. I'm afraid I would have lost my sanity completely if not for the kind words of the man in the cell next door. He'd wait until the guards have left, until the night grew still, and as I drifted toward the brink of madness, he'd slowly start to speak. He never addressed me directly. He'd simply tell stories and laugh heartily at his own jokes. They were such awful jokes. But his voice was filled with so much life, almost as if his heart was so full of joy, he couldn't help but give some of it to me. I wish I had. When my sentence was over, I was ushered quickly to the Bannered Mare, where friends and companions came to celebrate my release. We drank and feasted all night and passed along old stories like bottles of vintage wine. By the time I returned to this dungeon a week later, I found his cell empty. Because I'm rather confident they want me in their bed. And why not? I'd go to bed with me, and I don't even like men. I'm even running out of lavender flowers to leave on their beds. It's my signature, you see. It gives them a token to remember me by, and it helps me from making the mistake of bedding the same woman twice. You make it sound like life is something complex. Life's about one thing, and one thing only. Boredom, or rather, escaping it. Everything we do is an attempt to fill that time. I choose to bed a lass. Another may choose to marry one. The difference between that man and me is the level of commitment. Not to the lass, mind you, but to time. To stay interested, that man fills his life with wives and children. I'm gambling that even now, I can find something else to fill those empty days. Which is where your need of a companion and my needs collide. I'm willing to adventure with you, if you'll have me. The alternative is quite scary. Most of my stories center around beautiful lasses, and this is no different. This story happened shortly after I was released. I received a letter from a courier penned by one Eldawyn Mallory. With my bandit career finished, he wanted to know if I was interested in joining the Thieves Guild. I confess I wasn't, but I was curious. Upon arriving in Riften, I met a gorgeous blonde Nord by the name of Mjol. Her body was ripped with cords of muscle, but she was still a lady. I chatted with this tall drink of a woman and learned she was far too righteous for one so filthy as I. Of course, that never stopped me before. Yet, even as we talked, I could sense the eyes of another watching me. Now, I'm used to the wandering eyes of ladies, but these were filled with malice. That night, I met Eldawyn outside the old Ratways. He put a blindfold on my head and led me to the Ragged Flagon. It's inside the guild that I met those eyes for the second time. Her name was Vex, and she said she had a job for me. Then she smiled. A rictus grin, so beautiful, yet so wicked. She never stopped smiling when she uttered the name of the mark. The name was Mjol. My heart was torn between these two women, the thief and the lioness. I yearned to have them both, yet it seemed I'd be forced to choose. According to Vex, Mjol was staying at a man named Aaron's house, some worthless cuckold who shadowed her around wherever she went. A visitor had informed Vex that a bejeweled ship made of solid gold was kept in the guest room where Mjol slept. If I stole the ship, I'd prove my worth to the guild, and to her. I did what I always did when faced with a difficult decision. I went to the tavern and took in the noise. It's the silence that I can't abide. Something didn't sit right. Mjol didn't seem like the type to purchase what amounts to a big gold boat. And Aaron, I've met men like him. Spineless, meek, and hopelessly in love. The kind of man who'd never let a lass sleep in a guest room, just as a lass would never sleep with him. When I broke into the house that night, my suspicions were confirmed. I bagged Aaron's golden ship and returned to the Flagon the next morning. But this tale has a sad ending. For while Vex was pleased and Mjol unsullied, in the end, neither would submit to my charms. Then how about we go to the tavern and find some keen lasses? Telling stories always puts me in the mood. So does anything else. Goodbye.
I serve Jarl Balgruuf as steward. From Adrian? Ah, this must be that weapon for the Jarl. Poor girl. So eager to prove herself. I'll present it to Balgruuf when his mood is agreeable. Thank you. Please, take these few coins for services rendered. Enjoy your visit to Dragon's Reach. Divines bless you. May the ground you walk quake as you pass. That is an old tale, but well known to those of us who serve in the Keep. Long ago, there lived a mighty hero of the Nords, Olaf One-Eye. Olaf did battle with a fearsome dragon named Numenex. The struggle between Olaf and the dragon culminated in a mighty duel atop Mount Anthor, with Olaf the victor. Olaf returned in triumph to Whiterun. By his decree, the city's keep was rebuilt as a prison for Numenex. And so, from that time until this, our great keep has been called Dragon's Reach. Ah, splendid. Our fine city has a proud history, and I'm happy to share what I know. The history of Whiterun begins with your Vasker, the Hall of the Companions. For a long time, it was the only building on the mountain. As time passed, a thriving community sprang up around your Vasker, as was common with mead halls. Today, Whiterun is the jewel of Skyrim. I can say without boast that it is the greatest city in all the holds. Well, there are 3 of them, arranged in 3 tiers, as you may have noticed. The Plains District is so named because it's the closest of the 3 to the plains that surround the city. The inn and marketplace are found there. Most of the city's residents live in the Wind District, which is the middle of the 3. Dragon's Reach occupies the highest, which we call the Cloud District. From here, the Jarl can see all that goes on within his city. If there's any more I can help you with, just let me know.
May the gods watch over your battles, friend. With good planning and constant vigilance, even now my court wizard, Farengar, continues his research into ways we might drive back these terrors. We must also have ample reserves of water to combat the fires that will surely spread after an attack. But our greatest weapon? Courage. For if we cannot kill the beast, we must at least have the tenacity to drive it back. Until brave heroes step forward to destroy these monsters, that is the best we can do. If it's the war you're referring to, I'm on the side of Whiterun. No doubt General Tullius and his friends in the Empire will tell you that I owe them my loyalty, and perhaps I do. Ulfric Stormcloak would say that I owe my allegiance to the Nord people as they fight for Skyrim's independence. Perhaps this is also true. The day might come when I am forced to draw my sword for one side or the other. But that day has not come yet. No doubt he thought it was the only way to make his point. And also because he knew he could. Now, if you don't mind, I've got a city to keep.
All this standing around is rubbish. We should be taking the fight to the Stormcloaks.
If you're looking for the court wizard, I'm not him. Farengar is the one you want. If you wish to speak with him, you'll find him somewhere in the general direction of Boredom. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's this invention called wine that requires my immediate attention. Oh, all right, if you must. As the Nords say, make it quick. Brevity would be my favorite word if it didn't have 3 syllables. Now, wine, that's a good word. Short, sweet, intoxicating. People love wine almost as much as they love whining. I'm one of those people. Really? Are you a wine expert by chance? In my youth, I once thought West Wales wine was the finest drink ever conceived. Imagine my embarrassment when I tasted my first vintage. This is why natives of the Isle look down upon those born on foreign shores. My name is Eldawyn. I've come to Whiterun for the Skyforge and for Farengar. I don't see that as a negative. My Nord friends often chide me for neglecting the rich history of Skyrim, as if I was ignorant of it. They say, you know, Elder, there's more to Skyrim than just alto and spiced wine. And I tell them, yes, yes, I know all about your windmills and bards and 12 different words for cold. I only care about the wine. When it comes to examining wine, I'm still just a novice, although I have picked up the basics. Well, supposedly the color can tell you the wine's provenance, as well as the conditions it was developed in, serving as an indicator of how it will taste. Wine tasting is apparently all about discovery, yet I've discovered that I enjoy drinking wine more than I enjoy tasting it. So let the nobles sniff and swirl their goblets. I prefer to swallow my wine like a common rube. Yes, but there's still that extra step between me and what I want. It seems almost redundant, too. Like washing your hands before taking a bath. Really? No doubt from that knave Larkspur, telling everyone that I'm a battle cat under the sheets. The truth is, I don't even remember any of it. I just recall waking up naked and sneezing profusely because the sentimental fool left a lavender flower on my stomach. He does bathe, doesn't he? The goblet I drink from has been used by countless others, but it's still clean. Yorland allows me to use his magical forge to craft jewelry. I use the enchanting table at Dragon's Reach to raise their value. Then I turn them around and sell them to Farengar, and he always buys them. I've never met a man so obsessed with necklaces. He says their enchantments are valuable. I think he likes to wear them. Maybe tomorrow I'll enchant him a dress to go along with it. I don't really understand it myself. There should be more of me. It seems to me smithing and enchanting are two complementary skills. I can only assume it has to do with the stigma that comes with being a blacksmith. They say to wield a hammer, you must be as dull as an anvil and as strong as an ox, as if stupidity were a prerequisite for the craft. Although I have heard warriors talk of such things, they say the person who thinks too much on the battlefield lacks focus. In battle, having an empty mind certainly makes you more decisive, but the forge is not something that requires you to act swiftly. But I do like the notion of intelligence being a weakness. There are far too many mages who thumb their noses at common folk, as if worth was defined by the size of one's skull. Alchemists invented wine, farmers harvest the grapes, and smiths provide the tools. So, to me, each is worth more than all the mages in Winterhold. Well, don't quote me on that. It does seem likely though, doesn't it? Some alchemist trying to invent a new health potion stumbles onto a recipe for liquid bliss. Caves are the best place to find packs of wolves, or bears, sometimes even trolls. Unfortunately, by myself, they provide a bit of a challenge. There used to be 3 other mages in my faction, a motley bunch to be sure. A Khajiit, a Redguard, a Nord, and myself. Four mages can be a formidable party, especially when their talents complement each other. As a result, I can afford to make mistakes. Mistakes like trading our last healing potion for a flask of wine. Not a problem when the Redguard was there to restore my wounds. Thankfully, the one talent I do have serves me well. It turns out most feral beasts in Skyrim are susceptible to fire. Victim to the squalls of battle, I'm afraid. It matters not if you are a novice or an archmage. All it takes is a single misstep. The Khajiit was first. We all knew it'd be him. Then our numbers were 3. Next came the Redguard, then the Nord, and soon only I remained. The Khajiit, Razan, was what we call a scroll mage. Not an ounce of magical talent, but one who desperately wanted to cast spells. Where he got the scrolls, he never said. I thought he stole them, but he just as easily could have spent his share of the boon. It's not as if I ever saw him at the inn, or anywhere else for that matter. He was a paranoid cat as well, with a nose for things that didn't exist. Always convinced there was a spy lurking around the corner. He should have been wary of his dealer. He purchased a bad batch of flame cloaks that ended up burning him alive. Sarasa was brash and bold, and my kind of woman. Too brash for her own good, though. She wanted to trap grand souls instead of common ones. The most plentiful source of grand souls are mammoths. The most common place to find mammoths are giant camps. It was a short-sighted idea. We ended up wasting all our profits on magicka potions, provided we even survived. Sarasa didn't. Giants are quite protective of their big furry cheese factories. Well, at that point it was just the 2 of us. Razan wasn't particularly missed, but Sarasa was our healer. Einar was a gallant Nord, if nothing else. We were exploring a cave to the northwest. A large, desolate space rumored to be inhabited by necromancers. We entered the main chamber, which was hollow, save for the long fangs of rock that jutted from the ceiling. It was in the shadow of these fangs that the spiders lived, and from there they descended. We stood back to back as they surrounded us, his hands shrouded in ice, mine cloaked in fire. I wanted to set them aflame, to oblivion with soul traps. A waste of magicka and time, but Einar saw fit to waste both. Indeed, it was his soul trap that set them upon us. At one point I couldn't distinguish the live ones from the corpses, so I burned them all. We had managed to clear the path to the exit, however, and were just about to escape when a spider the size of the moon dropped from the ceiling. At this point, Einar and I were both out of magicka, and we each had 1 stamina potion left. Of course, mine was technically a wine bottle. It was an old vintage, from the wineries of the Isle that I was saving until death. Einar asked me if I wanted to trade. He said I wouldn't have much use for it, seeing as I was going to live a long, healthy life. That old romantic. He was sacrificing himself so I might escape. I could never say no to that man. He drank the wine, wiped his lips, and showed me his teeth one last time. They were stained and red, but I've never seen a smile so bright. Then he pulled out his dagger and drew the ugly beast's attention while I ran for the exit. Big as saber cats, but those aren't the scary ones. It's the little ones that make me cast my flame cloak. The ones that crawl up your robe. Fine, fine. About time.
Sir, we really must talk.
Speak.
We really must discuss the security here in Dragon's Reach. Perhaps we could limit patrols in the city and retain more guards.
Yes, yes, take care of it, Proventus. Whatever it is you're talking about.
Of course, sir.
Father says I'm too young to train with the sword, so I practice with my fists. Another wanderer, here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
One of the new servants? Remember that I like my meat rare. Absurd that you can't cook good sweet rolls in the skeever hole of a city.
Ain't nobody high and mighty in these halls, except in the Jarl. And don't you forget.
I might just be a servant among lords, but don't think for a moment I don't take my duties as seriously as the Jarl himself takes his.
I mostly deal with petty thievery and drunken brawls. Been too long since we've had a good bandit raid.
better give me 5 septims right now or I'm gonna bloody your nose.
No, please! I really don't have any money, Braith. I'll give you 10 septims tomorrow. Just don't hit me.
10 septims tomorrow, baby Battleborn, or I'm gonna bloody your nose and your lip.
It's no fun getting pushed around all the time. Well, I used to sneak out at night and try to tip over the big ox in the Greymane's yard. And me and Mila used to climb up on the roof of Dragon's Reach and look for birds' eggs. But I don't do that stuff anymore. Father keeps catching me and then I get in trouble. Bye.
What are you looking at? I'm not afraid of you, you know, even if you are my elder.
The Jarl has finally agreed to send you back to Riven. Yes, House Court. We'll leave immediately. It's just us against the dragon? Is that it?
I can't afford to send anyone else, and we don't know where the dragon is. Your main job will be to keep an eye out and get the people to safety if the town is attacked. I don't expect the three of you to fight off the dragon by yourselves, but I do expect you to do your duty.
Of course. We'll keep Riverwood safe. You can count on it. Let's move out. Time's a wasting.
I'd be a lot warmer and a lot happier with a belly full of need.
I mostly deal with petty thievery and drunken brawls. Been too long since we've had a good bandit raid.
say Skyrim belongs to the Nords. Mostly Nords say it. But I say it belongs to whoever has the biggest hammer.